Here's something that doesn't add up. A sperm whale's brain weighs about 6 times more than yours. An elephant's brain? Nearly 3 times heavier. And a bottlenose dolphin is packing way more brain tissue than you are, right now, reading this. So why aren't they the ones running the planet? Why is it us and not them? Turns out, size was never really the point. For decades, scientists used a simple trick to measure brain power. They called it the encephalization quotient, basically brain size compared to body size. Humans score high on that scale. So do dolphins. But so do mice. Weirdly, mice beat cows on this scale. And tree shrews? They've got one of the best brain-to-body ratios out there. Great achievement for an animal that spends its whole life dodging owls and eating bugs. Clearly, this ratio thing wasn't telling the full story. So a neuroscientist named Susanna Herculano-Houzel decided to try something different. Instead of estimating brain size, she actually counted neurons. Her team dissolved brain tissue into a kind of liquid, then measured how many cell nuclei were floating around in it. Simple idea, huge payoff. For the first time, scientists could get a real neuron count instead of a rough guess. And here's what she found. The human brain runs on about 86 billion neurons. Around 16 billion of those live in the cortex. That's the part that handles thinking, language, planning, all of it. That's a lot, especially for a primate our size. Most mammals pay a steep price for extra neurons. The bigger the brain, the more expensive it gets to run. Primates found a workaround. We pack in neurons without the size blowing up the way it does in other animals. But hold on, this still doesn't fully explain things. Elephants have way more neurons than we do, about 257 billion, 3 times our count. If neuron count alone decided who's smartest, elephants should be running boardrooms. They're not, because almost all of those neurons, over 250 billion, sit in the cerebellum, the part that controls movement. Makes sense, actually. A trunk with 40,000 muscles needs serious processing power. Its cortex, the thinking part, way smaller than ours. So it's not about how many neurons you've got. It's about where they are and how tightly they're wired together. Human cortical neurons connect to each other more densely than in almost any other species we've studied. Our brain isn't just big, it's chatty. It talks to itself constantly. Okay, so why us? Why did evolution build this one species like this? One answer starts in the kitchen. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham has a theory. Once early humans started cooking food, everything shifted. Cooked food is way easier to digest than raw food. That meant less energy spent on digestion, and digestion is expensive. All that freed up energy? The brain grabbed it first. It already eats about 20% of your calories just sitting still. Meanwhile, chimps spend almost half their day just chewing raw plants to survive. Cooking didn't just change dinner, It changed what a brain could afford to become.
But having spare energy doesn't force a brain to get smarter. Something had to push it there.
A lot of researchers think that push came from other people. Psychologist Robin Dunbar studied primates for years and found a pattern. The bigger the social group, the bigger the brain. His idea is called the social brain hypothesis. Keeping track of relationships takes serious brain power. Who's your friend? Who owes you a favor? Who's about to become your problem? Dunbar figured humans can maintain about 150 real relationships at once. That number even has a name now, Dunbar's number. No other primate comes close to juggling a social circle that big. Keeping 150 relationships straight all the time? That might be the hardest ongoing calculation any brain on Earth runs. Still not the whole picture, though. Wolves hunt in coordinated packs. Elephants grieve and remember migration routes for decades. Crows recognize human faces years later. Big brains, tight social bonds, plenty of animals have that. None of them built a smartphone. So what's actually different about us? Psychologist Michael Tomasello found the gap. Chimps can imitate and solve problems, sure, but they almost never teach, patiently, deliberately, the way a parent teaches a kid. Tomasello calls what happens next the ratchet effect. Every generation doesn't just repeat what came before, it builds on it and locks the improvement in place. A chimp troop might crack a nut with a rock forever and never improve the technique. A human group invents the wheel, and a few thousand years later, there's a combustion engine. That ratchet might be the strangest ingredient in this whole story, because it means human intelligence was never just about one skull. It's spread out, stored in language, in books, in tools someone else figured out for you. You didn't personally invent fire, you inherited it. Now, before wrapping this up as a primates are just built different story, meet the animal that breaks the whole thing. The octopus. Octopuses split off from our branch of the evolutionary tree about 500 million years ago, long before brains like ours existed. No shared blueprint, none. And yet an octopus can solve a maze, twist open a jar, recognize a human face, and, this really happened, escape a sealed tank overnight and sneak back before anyone noticed. It does all that with roughly 500 million neurons, a fraction of what we've got. Here's the twist. Only about a third of those neurons are in its central brain. The rest? Spread across its 8 arms. Each arm can basically think for itself. Cut an arm off, and for a while, it can still reach for food on its own. No signal from the brain required. It's not one mind controlling a body. It's more like 8 semi-independent minds, loosely managed by a 9th. No cooking theory explains that. No social brain theory applies to an animal that barely hangs out with its own kind. Evolution found intelligence through a completely different door. So let's put it all together. Dense, efficient neuron packing most mammals can't afford. A cooking-fueled energy surplus that made that density possible. a social world demanding enough to reward every extra bit of brain power. A culture that stacks knowledge instead of losing it every generation. And an octopus sitting off to the side, quietly proving none of this was the only way to get there. Each piece explains part of the puzzle. None of them fully explains why this exact combination only ever came together in one species out of millions. And honestly, that's where the science stands right now. We can count the neurons, map the density, track the calories. What we still can't explain is why it all lined up just once on one branch of the tree of life. Maybe the strangest part is realizing our brains weren't built to be the biggest or even the best. An elephant's brain runs a trunk with precision we could never touch. A crow solves puzzles with a fraction of our tissue. An octopus solves them with no central boss at all. We just happen to be the species where density, diet, society, and culture all showed up on the same day. So next time you see a dolphin figure out a puzzle or a crow bend a wire into a hook, remember, intelligence never had just one blueprint. It had dozens of different attempts scattered across species, each one solving the same problem in its own way.